What's up, everybody? The Oscars are this weekend / tomorrow / today, depending on when you're watching this, or they've already happened, and I'm really excited. And with both Oppenheimer and Barbie both being very successful movies that a lot of people have watched, and both being nominated for Best Picture, the Oscars, I think, are a little bit more on everyone's radar than they normally are. So I want to ask the question, can either of these movies actually win? What does it take to win the Best Picture award as a movie? I feel like there's a public perception around the Oscars that only movies that are marketed as artsy can really win, but I want to examine that and get into what that actually means. Is that actually even true? So I'm asking the question, does the weird art movie always win? Or at least, will they win in 2024? Due to the advent and rapid expansion of online gambling in our society, we actually have a pretty good idea of who's going to win in almost every single category. Thanks, online gambling and addiction. Due to other award shows, like the SAG Awards, the BAFTAs, the Golden Globes, we pretty much know which direction the Oscars are going to go, particularly with the one that we're going to be discussing in this video, Best Picture. And I have a patented two-step process which I'm going to use to analyze these movies, see if they're really artsy or not. And it comes down to two things, how weird they are and how sad they are. I'm going to rank each of these 10 movies on a scale of 1 to 10 in both of those categories. Then I'm going to combine those categories, and then we're going to see if the movies at the top are going to win Best Picture. The first part of this movie, the weirdness scale, not really going to have any spoilers. The second part, the sadness, will. And the entire video will spoil the Oscars, even though they haven't happened yet when I'm filming this. So first, the weirdness scale, and a little bit about weirdness. Weirdness, I think, gets viewed as this thing that's very off-putting to people because it kind of gives the movie a perception of, oh, I can't really understand this. What does this mean? The caveat here is generally movies that are overly weird, again, weird being kind of a generalization for a lot of things, don't really do that well at the box office. But sometimes these movies actually do very well at the award shows, because I remember The Shape of Water, a movie in which a woman falls in love with and has sex with a fish, and that won Best Picture. So maybe the wackier the movie, the better off you are. So we're going to start with the least weird, and at number 10 we have Past Lives, which is pretty much, real life. Past Lives is about a woman who had to leave South Korea and come to Canada. I almost said America. She ends up in America, but she has to leave when she's very young, and in the process abandoning her kind of boyfriend, but not really, kind of just like really close friend / crush, and then they reconnect a couple times throughout the course of their life. And again, it's pretty much real life. There's not a whole lot weird about it, except there is this one scene that's set in 2012, so they're using Skype, and those noises really brought me back to a different time than I am right now. And at number 9, we have The Holdovers. In The Holdovers, a teacher of a private boarding school has to stay at the school over the break, watching the boys who have no family and no one to go back to during the winter break. Again, the movie is fairly conventional, the story is pretty grounded, and the weirdest thing about it is that Dominic Sessa and Paul Giamatti get to be silly, goofy guys together over the course of the movie's entire runtime. And at number 8, we have Anatomy of a Fall. Anatomy of a Fall is about a fall, shockingly, and it's anatomy. A man falls out of his house, and then it's meant to it's kept ambiguous as to whether or not he jumped and killed himself, or his wife murdered him, because she was the only witness alongside their almost blind son. And then the movie becomes sort of a legal procedural and a legal thriller after that. The movie also never lets you know what actually happened. You have to make that conclusion yourself, although one is more likely than the other. And the weirdest thing about this movie for me is that prosecutors in France can basically just say whatever the hell they want.
Vous saviez que Sandra, comme vous l'appelez, était bisexuelle?
Non.
Et vous l'avez perçu sur le moment?
Non.
Bonjour, Your Honor, comment ça va? Is my client gay? Can I ask him if he's gay? Oh, I can? Okay, that's great. That's great. Kind of got a little Swedish at the end. Now we're finally starting to get into the kind of what I would say are the mildly weirder movies. At number 7, we have Maestro. It's a biopic chronicling the relationship between Leonard Bernstein and Felicia Montealegre. This movie is a depiction of reality, albeit a very boring reality. It's really only made weird because of the presence of Bradley Cooper's clearly trying too hard, overacting, self-directed performance of Leonard Bernstein. To illustrate that point, I will now read you a tweet that perfectly parodies how the dialogue is written in this movie and how it is performed by Bradley Cooper. Oh, darling, do you want to hear something? Do I? Why, yes. Yes, yes. Why is 6 afraid of 7? Oh, darling, I couldn't know. I don't know 6 or 7. No, you couldn't possibly. Well, you see, yes, it's because 7, 8, 9. Ha! Oh my goodness, isn't that something? Yes, it is. Well, I don't know what to do with that. If you can't tell, didn't really care for this movie. It is my least favorite. At number 6, we have Killers of the Flower Moon, Scorsese's newest movie about the tragedy of what happened to the Osage community when oil was found in their land and centered around a woman named Molly Burkhart. The movie is told fairly conventionally, but over the 3.5-hour runtime, Scorsese plays a little bit with things like cutaways, showing things that are happening in different locations, and then sort of a twisty self-cameo ending thing at the end. So, a little wacky, but not really meaningfully so. And at number 5, we have American Fiction. American Fiction is about a black author who's tired of the media profiting from black suffering and black stereotypes. So he then writes a novel using those same stereotypes and suffering, and the novel becomes wildly successful, kind of exposing the hypocrisy of it all. The movie, for the most part, is pretty normal, but there is one scene where the author is talking to the characters that he's writing as he's writing them, which is both charming and a side effect of paranoid schizophrenia. This movie, like Killers, also has kind of a twist ending, but it kind of one-ups it by turning the end of the movie into an actual movie and showing multiple different endings, which kind of came out of left field, and that's enough to get it in the middle of this list. And at number 4, we have Oppenheimer. Take Killers of the Flower Moon, subtract 30 minutes, and then you've got a lean 3-hour movie right there. Oppenheimer, obviously about the life of J. Robert Oppenheimer, and it's not crazy, but there is obviously a concurrent B-plot about Robert Downey Jr. trying to be confirmed to the Senate, happening in black and white. There's a couple weird visual sequences, and overall, it's definitely not crazy, but it's a little bit out there. And at number 3, we have Barbie. I mean, yeah, the movie where the doll comes to life. I mean, that's obviously going to be pretty high up there. This movie about a Barbie doll that comes to life and enters the real world is pretty out there in terms of if we're actually looking at the plot, what they're actually doing. A Barbie fighting against an oligarchy of Kens after the Kens have a coup of Barbie Land, and then America Ferrera's there and not in the superstore. Also, the set design, you literally do feel like you're in Barbie World, Barbie Land. I don't know the nomenclature. Yeah, Barbie is number 3. And at number 2, we have The Zone of Interest, a German movie about the Holocaust. I would say this is a little bit different from Barbie. The entire thing is shot in wide-angle shots, which kind of gives the entire movie a very unsettling feeling, except for when they occasionally do a close-up of the leader of Auschwitz as we hear human suffering in the background. There are also sequences that are shot with thermal cameras in all black, with the main subject being white. You don't see that every day. And I would say the entire artistic vibe of this movie is the same vibe as a Hitler painting, funnily enough, very drab and very dull. And the one that everybody saw coming, and if you haven't, you'll quickly see why. Number 1, we have Poor Things. Emma Stone is a woman who is brought back to life by a mad scientist in a bizarre steampunk reimagining of Europe shot on the weirdest fucking lenses they could find. Willem Dafoe looks like this.
This is Mr. McCandles.
Mark Ruffalo does stuff like this. This is a scene from the movie. Hey, I had to see it to make this video, you have to see it too. And if we're going off of sort of weirdness and bizarreness, then Poor Things and Barbie should both be really up there in favorites to win the Best Picture. But what about sadness? I think one of the things people talk about when they think of an art movie, a lot of them are sad. Very few of them are just straight up uplifting stories. If a movie is a little bit depressing, does it help its chances to win an Oscar? And this section, again, spoiler alert, because we'll be talking about the endings in most of these movies. All right, I am back from the function with a little bit of redness because there were dogs and I am allergic. And at number 10, this should come as no surprise, we have Barbie. If you're looking for just a movie, it's not really gonna challenge you too much in the sadness department. You got Margot Robbie, you got Ryan Gosling, you got Reddit main Simu Liu, you got all that in Barbie. The only depressing thing that happens in Barbie is she questions her own mortality, which is a little weird.
Do you guys ever think about dying? I'm just dying to dance.
But then she goes back to partying, and there's a lesson in there for you. YOLO. Am I right? At number 9, we have The Holdovers, which gets bonus points for being both a new Boston movie and a new Christmas movie. And I need to get something off my chest about The Holdovers, and because it doesn't matter, I will say it very quickly. Even though the movie is set in 1969 Boston, it was filmed on location in modern-day Boston, and in one of the shots, there is a billboard for a video game bar that I like to go to that was not there in 1969. Little bit of an error there, The Holdovers. Even though that does not matter, I will say The Holdovers is a very heartwarming movie, but it does have its sad emotional moments. Davine Joy Randolph plays a grieving mother who's just lost her son right around Christmas in the Vietnam War. And mind you, this movie is at number 9. We have got 8 movies ahead of this. We've got Grieving Mother at number 9. We got Dead Son at number 9. To give you a direction of how the rest of this list is going to go. And at number 8, we have a reverse of The Holdovers with an alive parent and a dead child with Anatomy of a Fall with a dead parent and an alive child. Yes, the movie that opens with a child finding the corpse of their father, very much dead, very much bleeding, is at number 8. The ramifications of that aside though, Anatomy of a Fall is not really what I would consider to be a depressing movie. Most of it is kind of in the structure of a legal thriller. You're wondering, did she actually murder her husband? And even if that's true, or even if it's not, is the court going to find her innocent or guilty? And that kind of represents a different type of sad. It's kind of more like a kid at a divorce hearing type of sad, except, you know, in this movie, the state is arguing whether or not the person's mother killed their father, and really if she divorced the dad from living. This movie also has the cutest dog, but then the dog almost dies. But almost is the key word there, and Best Boy lives. Fun fact, the dog's real name is Messi, and he was actually banned from the Oscars after he went to an Oscar voter lunch, and other producers from other movies accused him of lobbying the voters. So I think we finally found an Oscar scandal that's funnier than the slap.
Oh, wow!
And at number 7, we have Poor Things. Poor Things, despite being very, very weird, is not actually that sad. Although, in this movie, I'm going to award the first Patrick Oscar Analysis Cancer Award. Any movie that features a character dying from cancer or any other form of fatal serious disease gets one of these awards. And the fact that I felt a need to create an award for this should give you a clue of how common it's going to become in these next 6 movies. Poor Things, although the character's pseudo-father does end up succumbing to his cancer, the movie actually ends up pretty happy. She's chilling in a mansion, she's become her own independent person, she's learned a lot about the world, she's owned her asshole ex-husband and turned him into a lobotomite. Everyone's sitting around in a house really happy having succeeded. It's a carbon copy of the ending of the movie Holes. And I am really dating myself by talking about Stanley Yelnats. And at number 6, we have Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer did leave me with a lot of existential dread about dying in a nuclear war, but to be honest, I kind of brought some of that with me into the theater already. But this movie, unfortunately, in terms of getting it as sad as it possibly could have been, no one dying of cancer, only a suicide, which, I'm sorry, cancer is gonna beat suicide 9 times out of 10. I'll save one of those 10 for a particularly tragic and romantic suicide, but 9 times out of 10, we gotta give the edge to cancer, so step it up, Oppie. And speaking of cancer, at number 5, we have Maestro. Despite smoking cigarettes in literally every single scene, Leonard Bernstein's wife actually dies before him, and she dies of cancer. So yep, we got another cancer award to give out to Maestro. And Leonard Bernstein is also queer and kind of has to lie about it, except after the wife dies, it doesn't really take him that long to get with the student. So, you know, Not that his wife being alive, though, stopped him at other points during the movie. The other saddest part, besides the wife dying of cancer, is when she sits down and realizes her taste in men is people who are gay, so that's pretty tough. And I've definitely known some people like that in my life. And at number 4, we have American Fiction. American Fiction is a fucking mean movie because it introduces a character who is on the poster, on the cover of the movie in the first 15 minutes, and you assume they're going to be a major part of it, but nope! They die right away of a heart attack. Very young, very tragic, and I should not be crying at minute 20 of a movie. What the fuck? Unfortunately, that doesn't qualify it for the Cancer Award. Oh, wait a minute. We're not done, American Fiction, because American Fiction also features the main character's mother slowly dying with Alzheimer's, which is not quite cancer, but good enough for the Cancer Award. Now, it's not a super present plotline, kind of like a CED plot, but that just means every 5 scenes, you're going to watch someone slowly decline. In her last scene she shares with the main character, she calls him the name of his brother. Not great. Not great. And the ending of this movie, after you get past the 3 fake ones, is honestly pretty sad. He's back in Los Angeles, sad and alone, not able to reconcile the relationship he had built throughout the movie. So, pretty fucking sad. And at number 3, we have Past Lives, which, in a turn of events, does not have a single person dying or suffering from a deadly disease. Instead, the type of death in this movie is a little different. It is the death of a relationship. By the time that the main character and her childhood crush and best friend are able to actually meet, it's not gonna work for either of them regarding the timelines that their lives were on. He's in Korea, she's in New York. Pretty soon after they stop talking for the first time, she meets her husband, and that's pretty much curtains for that relationship. The entire hour and 45 minutes of this movie are dedicated to a relationship. That's not gonna work, we know it can't work, couldn't possibly work, it never could have worked, then it doesn't work, and we knew it never could have worked out to begin with, but that's pretty sad when you think about it. And that in another life, maybe they could have ended up together. It's pretty beautiful, but pretty freaking brutal. And at number 2, we have The Zone of Interest. The movie is mostly a bunch of people living a life of quiet domesticity, literally in the shadows of Auschwitz. The walls are pretty evident in almost every single outdoor scene. When they're close to the concentration camp, you can hear distant wails of people crying and just suffering, and then there are some scenes that the movie takes us on where they're literally in the middle of nature and you can't hear it, and you almost forget the whole point of the movie, and somehow those scenes are the most disturbing. So what movie could have possibly outsatted the Holocaust? Well, at number 1, we have Killers of the Flower Moon. Throughout the entire 3.5-hour runtime, we see a love story between a man and a woman, and then that man goes on alongside his friends to murder this woman's entire family, and then eventually start drugging her, and then eventually we find out that all the people who have been murdering and drugging people basically were barely punished, and then we find out that yes, obviously this really happened, and the ramifications of this still linger to this day. Yeah, that's a recipe for the most sad movie in my eyes. Even though the movie didn't gross that much, it is a beautiful piece of art that I would recommend. It is still, however, 30 minutes too long. So now if we take all of our analysis, we take both lists and combine them, we get The Zone of Interest, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Poor Things all in our top 3. They are the 3 movies that are the most sad and the most weird. But what movie is actually going to win the Best Picture? Well, we actually know with about 98% certainty, and if you're watching this after the Oscars happened, you can confirm that. And if I was wrong by some miracle, you can put that I don't know ball in the comments. I'm not even going to use the future tense. Oppenheimer already won the Best Picture award. Unless a plane crashes into Dolby Theater, the 5,000 point favorite that is clearing up in every single other award show is going to be the Best Picture. And although it's not in our top 3, I think our experiment actually proves something, because Oppenheimer is right in the middle. It was sad, but not too sad, and it was weird, but not too weird. It perfectly struck the balance. It didn't shy away from being a movie that has 2 concurrent plots, one of them in black and white about a Senate confirmation hearing, but it also didn't have a chicken, pig, and graphic sex scenes. It did warn us about the dangers of nuclear Armageddon, but it also didn't have anyone slowly dying of a disease. So maybe to win an Oscar, you have to be right in the middle. It is literally impossible to win an Oscar. You have to be sad, but not too sad. And you can never say you want to be a sad movie. You have to be weird, but you can't say you're making a weird movie because that's crass. You have to be long, but not too long. And your main character can be goofy, but not that goofy. You have to have an impressive acting method, but don't talk about your damn acting method all the time. You have to have a sex scene, but not too many sex scenes, which is insane, and if you point that out, you'll be accused of complaining. It's too hard, it's too contradictory, and no one gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault. Little Barbie reference there for you. I could not do it in one take. Shout out to America Ferrara. That was a lot to memorize. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you watched the Oscars, go and watch the Oscars. Let me know, what were your favorite movies this year? Have I inspired you to watch any of these movies? I would particularly recommend The Holdovers, Anatomy of a Fall, and American Fiction. They are all great movies, but honestly, every movie on this list except for Maestro is pretty good. good. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing. It helps me grow the channel, and I upload 1 to 2 new videos every week. In this video, you got 3, because it's a special occasion. But I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you for the next one. And as always, my name is Patrick, but my friends call me Pat.